Hi BookTube, it's Nadine and welcome back to Wiley Reading. Glad you stopped in. Today I'm going to talk about a book I just finished, which is The Wayfinder by Adam Johnson. And I was surprised not to see any discussions of it on BookTube, or at least none that I could find. I found plenty of interviews with the author, but it's puzzling to me because he's well known. He won the Pulitzer about 10 years ago. And also I saw it on some anticipated books of 2025 and best books of 2025, but no discussion. So I liked it so much, I'm going to give you my 2 cents. So to start with, the most obvious thing, it's a chunky book, and I'm usually suspicious of big books. I often find there's a better, smaller book buried inside it, but that's not what I found here at all. I feel like it earned all of its pages, and there weren't any sort of slow bits or soggy middles that weren't needed. It really it was really even paced and moving along with no excess. It takes place in Polynesia before any Western contact, and so it's an unfamiliar world to most of us Western readers probably, and he did a whole lot of research on this, and so he really built a very immersive world, and I really felt it was very rich and very, very interesting. The plot, I won't say too much about the plot, just broadly speaking, there are 2 strands of narrative. One takes place in a small island, and the population has evolved to become very egalitarian, nonviolent, consensus building. And the other strand is its opposite, which is the seat of the Tongan Empire, which is a very brutal, rapacious empire led by an aging king. And he has 3 sons. And so the stories are told in alternating chapters, but not long on, you'll find that elements of one strand start to permeate the other, and it grows more and more until finally they do merge. And I think that was one structural method that kept the novel really moving along for me. It is an epic, and it has all the epic stuff, you know. It has political intrigue and adventure and cultural details and social commentary and even a love story that I could stand, which says a lot for it. And but even though it is epic, it really always deals in a more intimate and warm way. It focuses on individuals, it focuses on communities, so you're not sort of looking at this society, this world from 1,000 feet. You're right in there. It has quite a few characters, enough that there's a glossary of characters in the beginning, but after a couple of chapters I really didn't need it. I felt these characters were very distinct to me, and I remembered them all very well. It's written mostly in the close third person, and I guess that goes a long way towards the intimacy, but one character speaks in the first person, and that is, her name is Koki, and she is I'm going to be pronouncing that name all different ways, and they're all going to be wrong, but she is one of the characters on the small egalitarian island. And what else do I want to tell you? The writing. Let's just go right to the writing, because that is what I love most about this book, and writing is always the most important thing to me. And this book was just pitch perfect at every turn. And it could be lyrical and beautiful. It could be very intimate, and dialogue, I think, is a big reason for that. And so I want to give you just a little example of the dialogue. I'll read that to you. And it is a scene that is in a canoe on the open ocean, and some of the people from the small island are traversing a long way because their island can no longer support them, and so they're looking for a new home. And it is a discussion between Koki and Tiri, who is an elderly woman who is blind. And Tiri has asked Korere to describe the ocean for her, and this is what she says. Ahead, the horizon is clear and flat, I said. To each side are squalls. They lean forward like they're trudging up hills. You know the kind of clouds. Soon they will stall, unload, and going belly down, flatten the sea. Yes, Tiri said, I can see them. I said, I miss how Hine would describe the ocean, saying things like, looks the same as yesterday. Tiri smiled. Watery, she'd call it, or very wet. So you can see in that the great affection that they have for the girl that was left behind, and their affection for each other. Johnson is also really good at showing instead of telling, especially when this world is so unusual that a lot of telling is involved, and he does it especially well when it comes to the art of wayfinding, and that is when these people travel in canoes in open ocean without sight of land for thousands of miles, using only the stars and reading the ocean to figure out where they are. And we watch the Wayfinder in action. I think my favorite character of all, though, is Koki. And Koki appears to be the last parrot in all of Tonga. And Koki is a very clever master manipulator of people. On the surface, he is the Koki they expect to see. You know, he kind of dances around and ducks his head and, you know, says things like, Koki want banana. But actually, there's a lot more going on in Koki. And he has one special trick, which is the word Nea, N-E-A, Nea. And when they ask him what it means, he says it can mean either yes or no. So he has an out for everything. But I want to give you just a taste of Koki when he is speaking from his own little heart. And he has a kind of to be or not to be speech. And it's in a chapter called Soliloquies, where several of the characters kind of unburden their hearts for the reader. A delicate vessel, the egg, Koki said. This shuttle from womb to world imposes darkness and isolation, yes. Yet, when at last a tiny beak breaks free to the welcome of light and air, where a fledgling to know the human world and wait, what chick would not preserve its shell, preferring not to enter? For make no mistake, it is a human world, shaped by human hands, now poised to pluck this still wet innocent from its nest. What wing of nature crafted the human grasp, giving it the capacity to ruffle and reassure, but also to rest in a ring? Not only does the human in a single gesture both strangle and embrace, it perverts the very nature of the natural, making menace of the simple dog, fattening the pig's life into a single lie. Even the life-giving banana, Nea, the banana. The writing has what could be called magical realism, I suppose, although it doesn't feel so much like magical realism to me as just authentic description of a culture that lives closely with the supernatural. So, for example, you've got talking parrots, you have souls decanted into coconuts and become advisors to the king. You have tattoos that bring certain powers with them. But all of this are just the spiritual beliefs of the people, and Johnson treats them just as a fact of the culture, which feels much more authentic to me. I think the overall purpose of this novel, aside from just telling a great story, is ecological. Because the people on these islands, when their ancestors first came, and it's only a few generations, at least for this small island, they're up to about the third generation. When they first come, they just see an island that's filled with plant life, filled with animal life. You know, it's a paradise, and they just consume, and by the time you get to Korere's generation, they're barely subsisting, which is why they have to leave. The Tongan Empire, the way they dealt with it was just by attacking and stealing, grabbing resources from other islands and creating an empire. But one thing that in his discussions, in the interviews, Johnson said is that even native peoples are not necessarily good stewards of the land. Some were, some were not. And so the problems that they face are very modern problems as well. My only reservation about this book is that I felt that it did kind of wrap up a little too quickly. I wouldn't want it to be much longer, but I felt like it was a little rushed towards the end. But outside of that, it couldn't have been better in my opinion. Let me know if you're planning on reading it. Let me know if you have read it. And any other bookish things you would like to share. So take care, be good, be well, be kind as best you can, and I'll talk to you soon.